Guys, these are the worst fragrances according to you. Yes, I'm going to talk about some fragrances that you guys think are the worst. I want to let you know what the fragrances are and also read the actual messages and comments I received about each of the fragrances. So if you're curious to learn about them, then please stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian. Yeah, today we're talking about the worst fragrances according to you. No, I get a lot of messages and comments sent to me about what fragrances you guys don't like. Of course, a lot of messages and comments about fragrances that you do like. But I'd like to highlight some of the worst fragrances according to you in this particular video. And I haven't done a video like this for a while, so it was time for me to do it. So we're going to find out what the fragrances are. There's a total of 11 fragrances, but it's 10 different messages and comments that I received. So one of the messages or comments that I got features 2 fragrances in there. So I felt like putting that one in together since they did mention 2 in the fragrances. And also I have a bonus, but it's not an actual fragrance, it's an actual whole house that some of you don't like. So I'm going to let you know about the fragrances. Before I do though, if this is your first time tuning into the channel and you haven't subscribed, please click the subscribe button below and also click the bell so you'll be notified for future videos and giveaways. So let's go ahead and get started. First fragrance we're going to talk to you about is Chanel's Le Lion right here. So here's the message I received. So I got the messages written in front of me so I could read them to you because I can't memorize these messages. But basically it says, Chanel Le Lion was the worst. Based on the description, I should have loved it. It smells like a combination of Shalimar, smells like cleaning fluid to me, and Patchouli 24 by Le Labo. Smoke and industrial cleaning fluid is what Le Lion smells like on me. Yuck. Is this a yuck to you guys? Is Le Lion a yuck fragrance? I absolutely love Le Lion actually, and I feel like it's one of the best fragrances in the entire Chanel catalog, including all of their signature fragrances and all of the less exclusive fragrances. This to me is the best, and it's one of the best fragrances that has been launched by a designer in many years. Of course it isn't the exclusive or the private and luxury collection of fragrances, but I absolutely love this. It does feature notes of labdanum, amber, patchouli, vanilla, sandalwood, musk, lemons, and bergamot. Yes, of course it does have a lemony bergamot start. It's a bit more lemony than bergamot to me, and it does remind me of Shalimar for sure, but I also feel like it reminds me a bit of Coromandel from Chanel, and also maybe a little bit of Tuberose, because Tuberose has that kind of burnt smokiness, leather. There's definitely leathery touches in this, but for me it's first Guerlain Shalimar, then Coromandel from Chanel, and then definitely something like Tuberose. But I could see why people hate this and love it. For me, it's pretty rough. That's what I like about it. I like the roughness here and its animalic touches. And of course it is called Le Lion after all. Lions are, you know, rough. They're kind of big and animalic and really ferocious animals. So I could see why this is called Le Lion. I think it's a super phenomenal fragrance from a designer. Really definitely deserves to be up there in my rankings from designer fragrances, but definitely some people will not like this one. It's not for everybody. I don't even know if I would call this a very Chanel fragrance. Kind of that's why I like it. I think it's just really great creation, created by Olivier Polge. Is it Olivier? Yeah, it's Olivier Polge. He's the son of Jacques Polge, the in-house perfumer from a long time ago. Anyway, this is the first fragrance we're talking about, Chanel Le Lion. Do let me know if you're a fan of it. Do let me know if you hate that fragrance. I'd like to find out. And also, I forgot to mention, if there is a fragrance that you hate, whether, you know, I don't know, just anything that you hate, or it could be a blind buy hate, it could be just a fragrance that you've smelled that you hate. Put a comment down and let me know what it is so I can find out, so perhaps I could do updates on this particular video. But let's move on to the next fragrance. Alright, next fragrance, we're going to a cheapie. This is a fairly cheap fragrance now, although it was not cheap when it first came out. It was selling at Sephora for around 70-80 bucks for it. This is Elizabeth and James's Nirvana Rose, this one right here. So this is the message I received. The worst is Nirvana Rose. I two found it at TJ Maxx and returned it immediately. It's absolutely horrible. So I believe this comment came in on a video I did for alternatives to Frederick Maul's Portrait of a Lady, and the comment came in for that. That's probably why it says the worst on this list is Nirvana Rose. So this, to me, I feel like it's a great spicy rose. It's a great spicy rose, actually, and it's so inexpensive that it's definitely a great cheapie for me. Again, it was at one time, you know, selling for a lot more at Sephora, but to me, it smells super fantastic. It does have those kind of touches for something like Portrait of a Lady. Also, it has hints of things like black oud or any of those kind of like oud rose combo fragrances, because there's definitely a pretty prominent patchouli presence here. And even though they don't mention the patchouli in the notes breakdown, they mention May Rose, Geranium, and Vetiver, I get a major dosage of patchouli here. And it's a very, very spicy patchouli rose combo, maybe perhaps with like light hints of oud in there or something like that as well. But do you guys hate this one? Is it a bad fragrance or do you love it? I think it's a great fragrance. For the price, totally worth it. I never bought any of these Elizabeth and James fragrances when they were selling at the regular price. But if I find more of them, I'm definitely going to buy more. Really, I'm going to buy more of them. Because this is a 50 ml for about 25 bucks. I think it's totally worth it. Although, I think I bought mine at TJ Maxx for about 16, 17 bucks. So that was even better value for this one. But let me know if you hate this one, or if you love it, or if you're just, you know, in the middle. Anyway, Elizabeth and James, Nirvana Rose, one of the worst fragrances for you guys. Okay, up next, going to a masculine or male targeted release, and it's a fragrance from 1996, going to the house of Mugler. It's Amen, this one right here. Are you a fan of Mugler's Amen? Well, let me tell you this, I just recently found out that Mugler's Amen is now an online MuglerUSA.com exclusive. So I don't know what's going on with Mugler and the men's fragrances, but maybe they're going to not focus on men's fragrances at the brand or house of Mugler. But this was actually such a love for me when I first discovered it in 1996, and at that time I was not perfume obsessed, but I was into really heavy fragrances. This was uber beast mode at that time. Intense. So here's the message I received. For me, Terry Mugler Amen is the worst. I thought it went bad when I first smelt it, but that weird smell is in pure malt too. But just a bit to make me think it couldn't have gone bad. It just smells so weird. It lasts forever too, which is normally great, but not when the smell is awful. LOL. So that's the message I got for this one. I can see it's not for everybody, because right now maybe this person has a you know, like a vintage bottle, because right now it's so watered down. I don't think this it doesn't have that weird smell. And I remember there was this kind of a weird gasoline like smell with this. It was just a bit rough and abrasive at the time, but once that kind of disappeared, it became this really yummy, caramelly, coffee, creamy, patchouli intensity kind of a thing. But all of that is kind of gone now. The notes apparently are caramel, coffee, patchouli, vanilla, honey, milk, tonka, benzoin, lavender, and mint. But man, it's gotten really light. So maybe if you are reading, I mean, if you're hearing me read your comment, if you remember your comment, maybe try again a newer formula, because it doesn't have that beast mode intensity. It doesn't last as long. It still smells a bit like the original, but it's a lot weaker, and it doesn't have that weird kind of rubber petroleum kind of car exhaust kind of smell when you first spray it. I'm a fan of it, but I like the original formula a lot more. This is a wimp compared to what it was back in 1996, and at that time I was really obsessed with this one. Now I'm not as much, if at all. And it's a sad thing what L'Oreal's doing with Mugler. As I said, this is now an online exclusive according to Mugler. So will they be launching any new men's fragrances? I don't know. But either way, Mugler Amen is one of the worst fragrances for you guys. So up next, we've got two fragrances. One person wrote and said two of these fragrances are so hyped in the community and loved, but I hate them. So the fragrances are FEVE Delicious from DIOR, from the DIOR Privé collection. And then, of course, Tom Ford's Soleil Blanc. This is from the Private Blend collection. This is the 100 ml bottle of it. But here's the message I received. It says, my worst buys were Dior Fève Délicieuse, I'm sorry, and Tom Ford's Soleil Blanc, another sorry. Both fragrances smell on my skin like old-fashioned grandma. It is so sad since everybody just raved about these scents, but there are plenty much better fragrances out there than these two. I mean, I could see that. So Dior Fève Délicieuse is a Tonka bomb. It's Tonka, it's a gourmand, it's powdery, it's a bit syrupy, but also dry and syrupy, I mean, powdery as I said. And Tonka beans rule here. For me also kind of like borders Amber Fougere style. There's lavender in this as well, but it's Tonka beans, vanilla, caramel, dark chocolate, cherry, benzoin, leather, coconut, freesia, and of course lavender, as I mentioned. It's one of my all-time favorite fragrances, and I can see people won't like it. Does it scream feminine to you? Is that why this person says it smells like grandma, old-fashioned grandma? I don't think it smells like old-fashioned grandma. To me, I don't know. I know vintage fragrances and old-fashioned fragrances. This fragrance doesn't smell like that, but maybe they're kind of reminded of something like Guerlain's Shalimar. Maybe that's why it smells a bit like old-fashioned, because Shalimar to me has a lot of Tonka beans. So maybe there's a distant smell to this that kind of reminds me of Shalimar. So maybe it reminds them of Shalimar as well. So that's Fève Délicieuse. The second fragrance he spoke about is Soleil Blanc, and to me this is a beachy, coconutty fragrance, floral fragrance. It's quite delicious, and it really does remind me of the combination of a beachy smell with marine smell, because there's definitely marine presence in here. But this one features notes of coconuts, tuberose, pistachio, ylang-ylang, amber, tonka beans, benzoin, jasmine, bergamot, and cardamom. So maybe it's this tonka bean note that this person doesn't like, but this one to me doesn't have that strong of a tonka bean smell to me. It's more coconuts and flowers, of course. There's a little bit of a nuttiness here, and of course major presence of not only tropical flowers like ylang-ylang, a yellow flower, but then you also have this beautiful heady kind of a tuberose in here as well. Just beautiful. I really think it's a beautiful, very beachy fragrance. But sad, it doesn't appeal to everybody. You gotta like coconut and beachy floral fragrances to appreciate something like this. And I guess I could see that tuberose may be the factor in this one. Tuberose and ylang-ylang maybe is what this person associates with smelling like grandma. At least that's what I'm thinking, because tonka beans and Soleil Blanc are not so prominent. But either way, you a fan of this particular fragrance, Soleil Blanc? Are you a fan of Fève Délicieuse? Do you hate them? Do let me know if you hate them, because I'd like to find out who hates and who doesn't hate those two fragrances. I really like them. I prefer Fève Délicieuse over Soleil Blanc if I had to choose one or the other, but I feel like both of them are great. And for a beachy vibe, Soleil Blanc is perfect. For a tonka bean bomb, Fève Délicieuse is perfect. Okay, up next we're going to a house called AKRO with Smoke. AKRO, is that correct? AKRO. And Smoke is right in here. So I first sampled AKRO fragrances back in early 2019 at Javoy in Paris. Didn't think twice about this particular fragrance, but then I was in LA in the summer of 2019, and there I smelled Smoke again. And what happened was, yes, I got lots of smoke, but then also it kind of bloomed and sweetened up in that dry, warm, hot, weather in LA, and it became a fragrance that kind of reminded me a bit of Tobacco Vanille. So I instantly, bought a bottle. But apparently this is not a favorite of a lot of people. For me, from this brand, Malt is my least favorite, and I absolutely despise that fragrance because it turns rotten fish on me, and I hate that because it is really, really intense with the whatever marine seaweed, whatever notes they have in there. Absolutely despise that because it's just really, really awful. It's almost like vomit-inducing kind of a smell to me. But this one I absolutely love. Here's the message I received. AKRO's Smoke is the worst smelling fragrance I have tried so far. It actually smells like something burnt that shouldn't be burned. Really, really disgusting. Yeah, some people can't tolerate certain smells. I mean, in the world, there are certain smells I like and certain smells I don't like. There's a lot of smoke I do enjoy. Like in the winter time, if I'm ever at my mom's, I don't have a fireplace here, but if I'm at my mom's, she's burning a fire, and I love that smell. Or if I'm in like the country and there's like a foresty type of tree, lots of trees, and there's a little cabin there with the, you know, fire burning, and that smell is out there. I love that, and that's kind of what this reminds me of, which actually becomes smelling like tobacco sweet kind of touch, like a almost like a pipe tobacco thing. But the smoke in this does smell burned, ashy, so maybe that's what is kind of putting off this person about this particular fragrance. But it's Balkans tobacco leaves, nicotine, Cade, Benjoin or Benzoin, and Tonka beans. I like this one. I like it a lot. It's kind of a breath of fresh air for someone that's used to tobacco vanille so much, and they want a little something different, where you got the addition of a major smoky ashiness here. So AKRO Smoke, one of the fragrances that you guys hate the most. And you know, yeah, I can see it's not for everyone. Smoke is a very tough note, I think. It's definitely a tough note. I think I'm going to need to update my smoky fragrances video soon. I haven't done one since 2020. I think it's time. Are you guys interested in an updated smoky fragrances video? Let me know. Put a comment down. Alright, up next, going to the house of GUERLAIN, it's L'Homme Idéal Extreme. I couldn't believe that people hated this one, but this one is not about smell. It's more about performance of the fragrance. Here's the fragrance right here. And I don't really get like beast mode performance from any of these GUERLAIN L'Homme Idéal fragrances or any GUERLAIN men's fragrances, but it's also not what I get with this, what this person gets. So for me, it's a moderate fragrance. It's not like overperforming. It's a little weak, but it's also a little intense at the same time. But this person says, hands down, my worst blind buy was GUERLAIN L'Homme Idéal Extreme. Pleasant enough scent, absolutely zero projection. I have to put my nose right on my skin to smell it. My husband can't smell it. No one seems to be able to smell it. It's not a super expensive fragrance, but I've got others that cost far less and perform far better. Yeah, so I guess the performance thing is definitely important to a lot of people, and I could see that this one's not performing really great. I wonder if the bottle that they have has been left in some kind of a condition that kind of destroyed the notes, and you don't have much top notes, and then you're basically spraying the fragrance, and then it's becoming, you know, heart and base notes and disappearing pretty fast. I don't know, maybe it is. But this does feature plums, almonds, tobacco, leather, cinnamon, heliotrope, pink pepper, patchouli, cedar, and bergamot. For me, this is a bit boozy as well. I think that plum fruitiness contributes to a booziness. Of course, it's tobacco and leather. There's spices. It's a bit holiday-ish. It does feature plums. Also, I should say, I do have a video on plums launching this Saturday. Stay tuned. Sadly, I left this one off the list because I'm focusing more on niche, but I do enjoy this fragrance. It's just, you know, it's my favorite in the collection. I feel like it's the most unique from the entire collection, followed by the Eau de Parfum version of this. But you know, there's definitely far better fragrances compared to this as far as plum goes. But performance, I'm not complaining about the performance of this particular fragrance because they all perform very similar to me, the entire collection. So I can't really complain. A lot of designer fragrances usually you know, perform similarly. So if there was a fragrance from a designer that, you know, performs a lot less than the others, then I would definitely complain about it. But for me, the entire collection performs about the same, so I kind of know what kind of performance I'm going to get from these fragrances. But as a smell, I think it's a great fragrance. Anyway, L'Homme Idéal Extreme is a really great fragrance from this house, but not for everyone. Alright, up next, this is the 7th fragrance I'm talking about. Going to the house of eccentric molecules, it's Molecule 1. So this is Molecule 1, and it does feature notes of ISOE Super, which is basically the only note that's in here, and basically you're only wearing ISOE Super. ISOE Super is a synthetic molecule that is smelling like cedar and a little bit of sandalwood combined together. That's what I get with this one. More cedar, but like touches of sandalwood are in here. But this person says, worst fragrance for me was Eccentric Molecules Molecule 1. I think it's the higher concentration of ISOE Super. It doesn't work on my skin. It also triggers my migraines, unfortunately. Although I smell it on other people, it doesn't seem to bother me. I can see that maybe some of these kind of notes or ingredients can cause migraines. Thankfully, myself, I don't ever get any migraines from any fragrances unless, as I said, if it's anything that's overly fishy, cologne heavy, marine heavy, seaweed heavy. algae heavy, those are the ones that are going to make almost like to the point of vomit inducing. But I don't really get headaches from specific notes and ingredients, so I don't know why, because I love smells in the world and it doesn't bother me. Maybe body odor from actual people, not cumin, would actually kind of also gross me out. But I don't really get headaches. But I can see these synthetics causing headaches for some people. Maybe perhaps they have sinus issues or whatever. But I actually really love wearing this particular fragrance if I want something very minimalistic. And the thing is, a lot of people are anosmic to this, so I don't understand how this person is triggering, like it's getting migraines triggered from this particular note in here, the ISOE Super, when a lot of people can't even smell it. So it's very interesting that's happening. Perhaps, as they say, it's the fact that it is a higher concentration of ISOE Super. But either way, do you guys like this one? I actually really like Molecule 1 for a layering tool as well. If I want to amplify a fragrance, especially if it's woody and it's kind of not performing great, spray this stuff on, let it dry, and then spray the other fragrance on. Or if you want a woody touch to a citrus fragrance, spray this stuff on, let it dry, and spray the other fragrance. It does amplify and enhance and kind of extend the life of other fragrances that are not performing as well, which is a great thing to do with these kind of fragrances. Either way, Eccentric Molecules Molecule 1. I think it's a great fragrance. You can do a lot with that fragrance, but sorry, it's causing migraines for this person. Alright, the next fragrance I'm going to talk to you about is Tiziana Terenzi's Porpora. This one right here. So Porpora to me does smell like Portrait of a Lady. It'll remind you of Portrait of a Lady. For me, I felt like the rose in here is definitely a bit jammier, but also there's some stuff in here that makes it a kind of drier, like you don't get like a syrupy amberiness from this particular fragrance. But this is a comment that came in that says, even if my worst blind buys were probably cheapies, bought randomly after listening to a positive review online, I would only mention Tiziana Terenzi Porpora because it was an ostentatious dupe for POAL, meaning Portrait of a Lady, but without its charm and depth. It was expensive, yet so flat and unoriginal. I guess, yeah, I think maybe this particular fragrance does seem like it is cloning Portrait of a Lady, which is one of my all-time favorite fragrances. That's why I don't highlight this particular fragrance much. I do actually love Portrait of a Lady and the way it wears for what it is. It's one of my all-time favorite fragrances. But then again, I highlight from this brand Ursa because for me, it's a great beefy alternative to Straight to Heaven. But this, it is roses, it is incense, it's patchouli, there's some light fruitiness, there's definitely musk. I do get a drier version of Portrait of a Lady, and I can see why this person is disappointed in it because it's kind of unoriginal and flat because it's basically a dupe of Portrait of a Lady. What do you guys think about Porpora? Do you like it? Do you think it's totally unoriginal? Is it totally a dupe of Portrait of a Lady, or do you have it and love it and wear it? Do let me know. Put a comment down so I can find out. Alright, up next, going to the house of Frederick Malle. Speaking of Frederick Malle with Portrait of a Lady, but this is not a Portrait of a Lady. This is not Portrait of a Lady. This is Frederick Malle's Synthetic Jungle. This one right here. So Synthetic Jungle, I felt like was a great fragrance from the house of Frederick Malle. Unlike Uncut Gem, which I hated. I felt like, you know, I shouldn't say I hated. I liked it, but I didn't think it was worth the money. It was not $420 plus tax worth fragrance. It could be fine for like $100 to $150. So I hated that fragrance. I didn't think it was worth it. But for me, Synthetic Jungle was amazing. I loved it. I love its greenness. It has this kind of like a green, crushed greens with flowers mixed in kind of a smell. You know, you like when you're crushing and chopping all these greens and vegetation and stems and things like that. And then you've thrown in some flowers. That's what I get with this one. It's a beautiful fragrance, I think. Really wonderful. But this person says, only my opinion in it. It doesn't matter in the end. However, I thought Synthetic Jungle smelled horrid. Absolutely horrid. Like a new fandangled Pinot clean at the zoo or something. Yuck. All the chemicals at Burning's Garden Isle. Worst. En passant was quite nice. Some of this I did not understand, but I can see kind of what they're going for. Synthetic Jungle is not for everyone. First of all, you got to be into green fragrances, and lately I've been finding out that there's a lot of people that hate green fragrances, which is kind of interesting because I had some clients come in here and do a sniff session, and it was a husband and wife. One of them didn't like green fragrances and the other did, so it's kind of interesting how some people do and some people don't. But this is a galbanum bomb to me. It's lots of galbanum, so it does have some bitterness. It does have, you know, bitter earthiness, but also lots of greenness with that bitterness. And then you've got some aromatic touches with basil, and basil is really, really prominent in here, and you can totally smell it. But it does feature flowers as well, spring flowers. So to me, this is very, very spring-like when the flowers have bloomed, and you've got this green vegetation, overgrowth, and you've got the smell of like hyacinth and lily of the valley in here, which is really, really prominent along with the greens. And it's galbanum and basil. Those are very, very green to me. And it does have a light fruitiness. You know, it's a really great fragrance, and I guess it's not for everyone. Yes, some people don't like green fragrances. I love green vegetation. I grew up with my dad who always planted things, gardens and trees and plants and flowers and herbs. I like that kind of smell, and I get that with this one. Do you guys like a synthetic jungle? Let me know if you do. Let me know if you don't. Put a comment down. And don't forget to put down your worst fragrances, either blind buys or any fragrance that you've smelled that you think is the worst, so I can do a follow-up for this video. And finally, the last worst fragrance for you guys I'm going to talk to you about today is Moschino's Toy Boy, this one right here. So this one, I can see why it's not everyone's favorite fragrance, but this person also, it's complaining about ambroxan, and it does have a lot of musky dry down in this particular fragrance. It has cashmerein, not only cashmerein, but also ambroxan, loads of it. It's used to extend the life of fragrances and to create for amber woodiness in the dry down. But the comment says, my worst fragrance is Moschino Toy Boy. It was unexpected just how incredibly bitter it is. It also dries down to an ambroxan, which is a note I really don't like. Yeah, there are people that really, really hate ambroxan, and there's people that really, really love it. There's something about ambroxan that I don't like it as much as ISOE Super, but I really, really like something like Baccarat Rouge or Not a Perfume. They're using these kind of like notes, and ambroxan is to smell like a synthetic version of ambergris, so that it doesn't really to me smell like real ambergris, but it's to replace the usage of ambergris because ambergris is so expensive. But to me, ambroxan smells like amber, woods, also a little aquatic touches and muskiness, so it's all in there. And it's also used in the base to extend the life, and I feel like it is here. I don't get the ambroxan in this one as much. I get lots of rose and pear. There's like a pear touch in here, and then there's some spices with white flowers and things like that. Anyway, it's a great scent, I think. It's not like, oh my god, the best fragrance ever, but I feel like it's a great designer offering for men. It's Toy Boy from Moschino, and that's the last fragrance I'm going to talk to you about today. What are your thoughts on these fragrances? Do you like them? Do you hate them? Is there a fragrance that you consider the worst ever? I'd like to find out what it is. Please put a comment down so I can find out. And also, worst blind buys. Are there any bad blind buys that you actually watched a lot of reviews and everybody was saying it's the best, and you bought and you said, oh my god, this is the worst piece of crap I've ever smelled? Anyway, put a comment down so I can find out what your worst fragrances are, so I can do some follow-up videos. Other than that, guys, thanks so much for watching today. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video, please share it, follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. Alright, there is a bonus here I'm going to talk to you about today, but it's not a fragrance, it's a brand overall. And it's funny, I get so many loves for this brand, and every once in a while I get hates for this brand as well. There are a few brands that I hate as well, but this is not one of the brands I hate. So this is Mancera I'm talking about. Alright, so here's what it says. I haven't smelled Montal, and because I think Mancera is one of the worst houses I've come across over hundreds of niche fragrances so far. Yeah, I can see why Mancera can be not a favorite house for people. It does have a kind of a DNA. It has a very Middle Eastern vibe, but I think they offer some great fragrances. There are some great fragrances, not all of them are great. There are some fragrances I feel like that have like really thick heaviness of density when you're wearing it, and some of the smells in those fragrances are just really not for me. But there are fragrances that I really, really enjoy, and I'm really, really looking forward to Tonka Cola. That one sounds amazing. But Red Tobacco is a favorite of mine. Hindu Kush is a favorite of mine. Intense Cedrat Boisé, and several others that I really enjoy. And I've been enjoying Mancera over Montal a lot more lately. But let me know if you hate this brand. One more hate comment or message. Mancera is the worst house I've ever tried. If someone offered me a choice that I can only wear clone houses or Mancera for the rest of my life, I'd go with the cheap clone house Juice. Yeah, it's not for everyone. You're gonna hate some houses and you're gonna love some houses. There are some houses I hate. There are some houses I don't talk about because I just don't think they're worth talking about. And there's houses that I really love to talk about because I feel like they have some great fragrances, like Frederick Wall, Kirkjun. Those are some of my all-time favorite houses. But yeah, Mancera is not for everyone. Some people also don't like very, very intense fragrances, and I feel like Mancera is so intense, they could be put off by the intensity of the fragrances. But if you're a fan of Mancera, let me know. And if you're not a fan of Mancera, do let me know. Put that comment down so I can find out. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. Have a good one.